folks, how you doing? Dave Mcrae here. It is Thursday morning, January 30th, 2020. It's hard to believe it is already Thursday fucking morning. Psycho celebrates its 60th birthday this year. I mean, we're still quite a few months away from the actual release, which was, I think, in September or something, if I'm not mistaken. Was it September? Let me just double check here. I have all my little notes up here. Let me see. Yeah, September 8th, 1960 in the United States. But it was also shown in June as well, released by Paramount Pictures, of course. Hard to believe that Psycho is celebrating 60 years. Alfred Hitchcock, of course, best known for Psycho. You could make an argument, and it's kind of ironic considering he was doing movies for decades before that. It would almost be like Steven Spielberg being best known years from now for Lincoln. Yes, Lincoln. Good movie, right? Really good movie. You know, sure, okay. But geez, the guy was doing movies long before that. That's Alfred Hitchcock for that. Alfred Hitchcock started in silent films, believe it or not. And, of course, he was born in the late 1800s. And he started, I believe his first movie was 21, 22, something like that. And then I believe, and then of course he made the transition to talkies, as they called them. And I believe it was Mastermind. I wrote this down here. Where is it? Mastermind. Oh, I have my little note here. Was it Mastermind? No, Blackmail, excuse me. It was Mastermind. Blackmail, Mastermind. I don't know where I got that from. Blackmail from 1929 was Alfred Hitchcock's first talkie, at least from a bit of the research that I've done. And fascinating, isn't it? It was apparently the first British talkie of all time. I mean, at least from what I'm gauging here. So interesting stuff. I mean, I knew that Hitchcock had been making films long before Psycho. I mean, arguably my favorite Hitchcock movie is actually Rear Window from 1954, I think. I think it's 54. Well, the good old Jimmy Stewart. That's right. It's Jimmy Stewart here. A fucking son of a bitch. Apparently, Alfred Hitchcock didn't want to work with him again after Vertigo, I think. So the story goes, as far as I know. But hard to believe that Psycho is celebrating 60 years. And I wanted to talk a bit about Psycho today because, I mean, you know, it's funny. When you read up on Psycho, when you watch some documentaries on Psycho, when you familiarize yourself with Alfred Hitchcock, the kind of filmmaker he was, the kind of director he was, it really is, because I think the thing that fascinates me the most, and often fascinates me a lot when it comes to older horror movies, or even just movies in general, I'm really fascinated, and maybe you guys are like this too, but I'm really fascinated by their pop culture footprint now, but the impact they had, how they entered the zeitgeist, how they entered the pop culture consciousness when they were first released. And another example of a fascinating story is The Exorcist, of course, from 1973. And Psycho was 13 years before that, and nobody had seen anything like this. I mean, Alfred Hitchcock was very well known. I mean, he was already a prestigious classic filmmaker when this movie came out. It's not like Psycho made Alfred Hitchcock. Alfred Hitchcock could not have directed Psycho, and he would have been okay. And he still would have been the iconic legend that he is today. That's how late Psycho came in his career, right? I mean, it's kind of funny in so many ways because in a lot of people's minds, he's most identified for that because of the impact that movie had, especially in its time. And one of the things, there's a couple things I find really fascinating about that film. I mean, I can toss out all the cliches and the shower scene, which is really cool, by the way. But the thing I think that I find really interesting, Hans Gruber says Rope is my fave. Rope is fantastic. Rope is great. I remember when I was in film school back in the 90s, we watched Rope. One of our professors, I forget if it was my film professor? It must have been. Yeah, I guess, it must have been. We watched Rope. It was my first time seeing it, and I loved it. I loved it so much I scrambled trying to find it. Of course, in those days, it was difficult to find on VHS, but nonetheless, I'll put my water somewhere here where I have access to it. So, Rope is great. I mean, there are so many great Hitchcock movies. The thing that I find really fascinating about Psycho is the marketing campaign and the psychological sort of manipulation that Hitchcock used in order to get asses in the seats. I mean, it was on a lot of the marketing and out on billboards outside the theaters back in the day. Of course, we're talking about old school theaters, the old school box offices, right? You know what I mean? Lining up outside. I miss those days. I mean, obviously I wasn't around in the 60s, but I'm 40, so I'm still old enough to remember theaters that were not the big stadium style seating theaters that you get today, whether you're AMC in the US or whether you're Cineplex up here in Canada or whatever the case is. We now have, state of the art. I mean, they're amazing. But you guys who are old enough to remember older theaters, right? And but that was it. That was state of the art then. I mean, they were essentially many years ago. Movie theaters were actually stage theaters. They actually would show movies in theaters that were designed for stage plays, because obviously acting and performing comes from the theater. Every single thing you see in motion pictures, every single thing you see had its infancy in the theater. The only thing that did not, of course, was cinematography. But whether it's acting or directing or writing or producing or set designing or production design or even special effects or music or whatever it is, all comes from the theater, except for cinematography. So that's why it's so cool to look at these documentaries and look at, and read up on. I find all that stuff really fascinating. And Psycho had these signs outside of the theater with Hitchcock on them, basically saying that you must watch this movie from the very beginning. Now, you don't have to. I mean, it's probably always good to watch, every movie from the beginning. I mean, that's probably a good place to start if you've never seen a movie and you want to watch a movie and you want to be told a story. It's probably a good idea to watch a movie from the beginning. I mean, it's crazy. Call me crazy. I know, but it's probably a good idea to watch it from the beginning. But it was a psychological tactic, right? It was like, oh my God, we got it. Like, this movie is so fucking epic. This movie is so scary, is something you've never seen before, that you must watch it from the very beginning. And because of that, once that movie begins, once Psycho begins, you will not be allowed to come into the theater. And that was true. They actually did that. That's how they got people into the lines. And back then in the late 50s, early 60s, I mean, guys, it's not, listen, I wasn't around then, obviously, but come on, it wasn't like it was today. It wasn't like it was 25 years after that in 1985. I mean, it was people were more naive. People were more trusting. People were more gullible, right? People were believing in things more. You could say that and really rope, no pun intended, Alfred Hitchcock, great movie. You could rope people in easier that way. Go, like, dude, we gotta go down. I don't know if they were saying dude, but you know what I'm saying? Like, we have to go down to the theater. We have to go down. We gotta see this shit, right? Oh my God, what is it gonna be? And they wouldn't allow people in because it's imperative that you watch it from the beginning which in some respects is true. It's 100% true. But Hitchcock took it to the next level to really milk it, right? Really make you think psychologically, oh my God, this is like nothing you've ever seen before. And in 1960, it was horrific. It was horrific in 1960. And the irony about Psycho, and something that's so cool, really, at the end of the day, it's not Janet Leigh's story, right? It really isn't. It really isn't. Marion, I think your name is, right? It's really not her story. It's Norman Bates's story. But the misdirect was brilliant in hiring a star. And remember, this is back in 1960, Janet Leigh was a star. And to have her in the movie, again, back at that time, you would just naturally expect that she's going to be from beginning to end. You wouldn't expect her to exit so early. And although, to be fair, it's not like she is in the movie for pretty much half the film. But for her to exit altogether, you wouldn't expect that, and to exit in such a, for 1960s time, horrific way. I mean, the movie was shot in black and white intentionally to sort of get past the censors, right? Because Hitchcock knew that he needed blood in the movie. He knew the scene was going to be intense and graphic, for all intents and purposes for that time. And because in 1960, there had been many color pictures. I mean, most, Technicolor, but nonetheless, films were being made and released in color in 1960. So he didn't have to make the picture in black and white, but he chose to. Yeah, you could say, well, maybe it works better because it's got some mood and atmosphere and the light and shadow and the high contrast of the dark shadow. Yeah, it works great. I feel the same way about don't ever watch Psycho in color, because I stand to be corrected, but I believe you can actually watch Psycho in color. Don't do that. Now, maybe if the movie had been released in color, we wouldn't be any the wiser, right? We'd be like, oh, okay, cool. And if we watched it in black and white, we might be kind of like, oh, this is kind of weird. But don't watch it in color. Watch it in black and white. It's fantastic. So that scene, you're following Marion, and you believe that this is the character that we are meant to. She's so sweet. She's attractive, right? I believe she was only about 32 years old or something. She's pretty. She's sweet. She seems, and then in the end, she's going to do the right thing, right? She feels guilty. She feels remorseful of stealing the money and no, I can't be doing this. What am I doing? This is crazy. I've come to my senses. Fortunately, she's going to pay in the biggest way possible. And although you don't see much and you don't have to see anything, just seeing a starlet like that, seeing somebody as sweet and pretty and sexy and talented, and again, 1960, right? Seeing somebody like that offed in such a horrific way is like, oh my fucking God. You know what I'm saying? And of course, he famously used chocolate syrup for the blood. And you could get away with that because obviously it's black and white, and the consistency of chocolate syrup, the thickness of it obviously worked best when you were placing it in water. And it was dark enough as well for the black and white film. So, but then you begin to realize, as you move on from that moment, you begin to realize that, this is really Norman Bates' story. And that's what's so cool about it, is you're introduced to these characters, but really at the end of the day, our main, well, he is the antagonist, but the main guy, it's really a story about the antagonist. You know what I'm saying? It's not really about the protagonist, because she's off halfway through the movie, and then we have to rely on her sister and her lover to kind of figure out what's going on. But the real interesting side, the real sort of meta deep, like what the fuck is going on, all belongs to Norman Bates. And if you watch the movie, if you've never seen the film before and you watch it for the very first time and then watch it again, all the clues are there. In the things he's talking about, when he brings that sandwich to Marion, and the things in his office, and the taxidermy that he's clearly kind of into. There's so many. It's such a cool scene. Even the moment when Marion first arrives and Norman takes her into the motel room, right, which is conveniently right beside the office. And he opens the windows there, right, because it's stuffy. I think he says, oh, it's a bit stuffy in here. Let me open the windows. Seem innocent enough, right? Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it's a bit stuffy. Sure. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. But really what I think is going on there is that he's calculated this. He knows every single thing he's doing is completely calculated. he knows that he's going to give her the motel room beside the office, naturally, because he can spy on her, naturally, because she's very close to him. It's easy access. He's opportunistic, right? He needs that in order to be able to have control over the situation. He can't put her in room, 12 down around the corner because it's too far. He needs that sense of control and being able to kind of have, the upper hand on the situation and mold things how he sees fit. So when he opens the shutters or opens the window, he knows, he even looks up to his house. He knows the house is staring right back there. He knows that anything he does up at the house with the windows open up there, she's going to hear it, right? And she does. Right? She does, because she hears Norman having a argument with his mother, right? And it's perfect, brilliant. You don't really think about that when you watch it for the first time, but when you watch it again, you're like, oh my God, this is totally, he knows exactly. He didn't open the windows. I mean, sure, maybe it was stuffy. Maybe it was a little stuffy, but that's not really the reason why he opened the windows. He opened the windows so there is a clear line of sight and a clear line of sound coming from the house to her bedroom. And it's really, he's fucking with her, right? He's grooming her. He's molding her into that trust factor, and he's completely nuts. I mean, he really is nuts. He really believes that his mother is alive, but he's calculated as well. And just really cool stuff, Now the book differs. What is really cool, obviously, when you read up on this, is that Norman Bates actually in the book is a short, fat, bald guy, not very physically appealing. And Hitchcock and the writers thought that, well, in order for this to maybe be a little more believable, that Marion might be a little enamored by this. I mean, she's not, ready to go on a date with this guy. It's not that she's, enamored with him at all, really, at the end of the day, but she finds him charming. There's a quirkiness, awkwardness about him, but she probably finds him, he's handsome. He's probably just a little gun shy, he's just kind of awkward, lives alone, and he even sort of alludes to as much, right? But you see what the thing is that they because this is really Norman Bates's story, they need the audience to feel a sense of empathy for the character on some level, right? You don't necessarily need to feel sympathetic for the character, but you gotta sort of, Anthony Perkins was brilliant at creating that sense of, he's kind of cute, because you feel kind of sorry for him, don't you? Right? You feel sorry for him. You do. He's kind of, he's kind of sweet, right? They need to really, right? They need to reel you in that way. They need to hook you in that way. It's so important that they do that. And so instead of casting a short, fat, bald guy for the movie, they went with more of a traditional tall, dark, and handsome, which I think was smart because, of course, he's easier on the eyes, right? He's and because of that, psychologically, you give, if he's a short, not that there's anything wrong with short, fat, bald guys. I'm just saying. George Costanza. What do you mean? I'm short, Jerry. I'm short. But in order for the audience and Marion to feel, in order for him not to visually seem slimy or gross or, groomed, or, whatever the case is, we need somebody that we, visually is more appealing. And that's all to gain just a little bit of your trust. Because remember, if you're watching this for the first time, you would believe that he's really got a mother up there who's nuts. So you feel a little empathy for him, and of course, if you have a crazy mom yourself, you might feel a little sympathy for him. But it's so cool. Like there's so many factors that made Psycho work, but at the end of the day, in 1960, it was something that nobody had seen before. Especially killing a magnificent star like Janet Leigh off like that. It's like, oh my God, like that in and of itself is just was horrific at that time. And the psychological tactics they used for marketing, you got to watch this from the beginning. You can't come in if the movie's already started. And it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And it really sort of, and then, of course, the shocking ending, right? Where it's like, oh my God, it's been him the whole time. He's the mother. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, no way. Are you kidding me? I think even today, if you were, now obviously I've just spoiled it for you, but come on, it's 60 years old here, folks. If you haven't seen Psycho by now, you ain't rushing out to see it. But I can imagine for somebody who doesn't know the ending.
Fuck you, man. Come on.
Hey, it's 60 years old, man. It's 60. Anyway, it's one of those things where if you are unaware of how the movie ends, that is shocking. Because it's like, because even today, watching the movie today, 60 years later, it still holds up. I mean, yes, it's dated, and the shower scene is not as gratuitous and violent, and as something you'd see today. But context, people, context. I mean, you look at it; it's still very frightening. And when people say that people were afraid to have showers, I mean, it doesn't mean that there was mass hysteria and there was sort of like this epidemic of people not showering in 1960 and people going to work smelling and no, of course not. But it was there were people, it really affected many people, it affected people in the same ways that Jaws affected people about going swimming. You think about it, there were a lot of people, men and women, that were taking showers, but going, I feel a little weird in there. It's kind of creepy to take a shower. That is amazing. To have that, it's not that after Jaws, the beaches were all empty. Well, of course not. But they say people were afraid to go in the water because there are so many people that, thought twice, like, holy shit, like they're out there and you're swimming around, especially if you're in the ocean, right? Or you're in Florida or something like that, or Australia where there's a lot of great white sharks, or California, it can be a little unnerving. You're kind of like, my God, it affected people that way. Of course, eventually people got over it as time moves on, but what a great film. And the mood is great. Just everything from the cop following her as well. It's well known that Alfred Hitchcock, was afraid of law enforcement. He wasn't, and he uses, I just love the shot when the cop pulls up to Marion's car or walks up to Marion's car because she's on the side of the road, right? And he leans in, and just that shot of the cop with, the glasses on. He reminds me of not the warden, but the main the main sort of guard. I forget his name now, in The Shawshank Redemption. The one that beats that guy to death, the one that's sort of the alpha male there, who's calling everybody fucking pigs and all this guy, or whatever he's saying. He kind of reminds me of that guy. He's got the same sort of long, bold kind of face. He's looking in. He's got the shades on, and and it's supposed to be that nothing ends up happening, but just that scene and the scene after it when she goes to the car dealership and she's trying to get rid of her car to help cover her tracks, obviously, because at that moment she's still set on, no, this is it, I've got the money, I'm running away with my dream man. Like she's gonna, although in 1960 you might be able to get far now, good luck, or as they say in Taken, good luck. I will find you and I will kill you, good luck. Anyway, so that's a great movie, by the way. So yeah, but that whole, the whole thing, right from when she's right from when the cop is there, right to when she buys the new car, just having his presence looming over her, like at any moment. Again, you might not feel it today because the movie's 60 years old and it's a bit dated, but in 1960, watching this movie, I mean, you would feel nervous. You feel like, holy fuck, no way, he's onto her. He's totally onto her. And he is. He knows there's something suspicious. He doesn't know that she's stolen money. He doesn't know that he might find it, but then he eventually finds it kind of odd that she's paying cash for a car. I mean, that's holy shit, right? But he knows there's something wrong, but can't quite put his finger on it. But then what's also interesting about it is that he is there to serve and protect. And you almost feel this, it's like a dichotomy. You want her to get away, but yet because of the movie you're watching, she's driving into danger. So you want him to almost save her, but you don't want her to get caught because you sort of feel, empathetic towards her because of the way that, certain people treat her at the bank and, all this. And, like, even though she shouldn't be doing what she's doing, she's beautiful, she's sweet. You don't want you don't want anything to necessarily happen to her. So it's like, oh, the cop, that's good. That's safety. But yet do you know what I mean? It's like a weird feeling you have when you're watching that play out, because you almost want him to stay with her because she's driving into danger just by the fact that you know what this movie's about, but you want her to get away as well. So that is brilliant in and of itself. That is a really interesting sort of dichotomy that the viewer can sometimes have and struggle with when you're watching Psycho. At least I find myself watching when I watch it, sort of struggling with that. It's like, but then at the same time, it makes it a little bit easier that you might sort of lean towards her escaping and getting away and leaving him behind, because like I said, he looks kind of like that guy from the Shawshank, Redemption, and he kind of has that this woman is suspicious, and he doesn't really particularly seem friendly per se, or have good bedside manners, or he seems sort of cold, and and he's cynical. He's completely in 1960. What is this woman doing lying in her car on the side of the road, and then she trades her car in, and she pays for it cash? Okay. You know what I mean? It's like, all right. Yeah. He's a little, he's not, he's a little skeptical, a little cynical, I would say. So certainly because they play it that way, and because of Alfred Hitchcock's sort of feelings towards certain law enforcement, which is an interesting thing if you read about online. Very fascinating. But it makes it a little easier to digest and go, okay, I'd rather her get away than him continue with her. But there's still that sort of interesting kind of pull there, which is really fascinating. So the whole movie is great. It's a classic of the genre, arguably one of the first slasher films in that way. It was things we hadn't seen before. But what's great about Psycho is the shower scene, and I know that the private detective obviously is murdered on the stairs, which I remember the first time I watched that freaked me out because I didn't expect it. He's walking up the stairs, and then all of a sudden, and Bates comes out of the room in the wig, and it's like, oh, and then there's that, whoa, down the stairs and shit. It's like, holy fuck, caught me off guard when I first saw that years ago. I was like, damn, that's fucking freaky. But besides those two scenes, that's it. Those are the only murders in the movie, right? Everything else is built around what the fuck is going on up there, right? Who is this guy? Who is this mother, right? There's that suspense, that insidious sort of, like we're building to this climax, but as a viewer, it's like, what the hell is going on up at that house? What's going on up there? Like, what the fuck? Because we're slowly but surely beginning to unravel things, right? And just the fact that he buries her in the puts her in the trunk, buries her in the swamp, and then there's just that shot of him kind of turning like this, you know, looking at the camera. Ooh, man, I love that. One of my favorite shots in horror is that shot after the car has sunk, and it didn't look like it was going to at first, right? He's kind of like, oh shit. And you can see him, he's like doing this, you know, he's doing this because he's nervous, right? He's like, come on, fucking go, come on, you know? And then it goes, and he's got that little grin, and then it's like, it's not gonna go, and he's like, and then it goes, and he just kind of turns to the camera. I don't know if it's at that moment, actually, if he turns to the camera, but one of the moments, he turns to the camera and just looks or whatever. It's a great shot. Love that shot. It's in the trailer for Psycho. You can find it online as well. It's brilliant. So, you know, I mean, what isn't there to say about Psycho that really hasn't been said already? But I just wanted to say happy birthday to Psycho, 60 years this year, and give just sort of some general consensus thoughts on the movie. Definitely a classic. Definitely the arguably the great grandfather, godfather, if you will, of early horror, the slasher subgenre. But, you know, there's so much to love about that movie that isn't, I mean, that's great, that's cool, but there's so much else going on. Hitchcock was a master of filmmaking and a master of you know, the lens and the negative space and just so much. I mean, he was just brilliant behind the camera and knew where to place the camera, knew when the actors, you know, how they would enter frame, how they would exit frame. It's just, his films are, there's so much to love about Psycho. I love the shower scene. It's fantastic. Obviously, she wasn't really nude in there. She wore a skin-colored beige, sort of beige-colored garment of some sort. But even that, even seeing Janet Leigh in the shower, even like that, was like, oh my God. I mean, Psycho was the first movie, or the first American movie, I believe. I remember reading this years ago, where a toilet was, if not just shown, but flushed. I'm not kidding. Psycho, I believe, I stand to be corrected, but I believe it was the very first American film, I believe, maybe the first film of all time, I'm not sure, but certainly the first American film to show not just a toilet, but actually show a toilet flush. Like, that is where the American pop culture movie cinema was in 1960. Think about that. So when you see this starlet, the star, Janet Leigh, in a shower, it's like, what? Oh my God. I mean, it was, right? It was. You got to think about it in context. And then to see her I mean, she's so vulnerable, right? That is one of your most vulnerable places to be. You know, it's like sleeping. It's like being in bed, right? Being in the shower, you're vulnerable. The shower, seeing her murdered in such a horrific, 1960 horrific way. But just the psychological implications of that. It didn't need to be gratuitous. You didn't need to show anything. You just needed to show the, you know, no. This, like, oh my God, holy fuck. The theater was screaming. They were losing their fucking minds. Nobody's seen this before. What the fuck? Holy shit. Holy shit. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, all that is great, but everything around it is just as good. You know, the psychological nuances of Norman Bates's character. You know, the things he's saying, those little subtleties in his character, those little nervous laughs and grins and nail biting. And we all go a little mad sometimes. You know, fuck. It's brilliant. And then at the end of the movie, just that little smirk when he looks up at the camera. It's on my thumbnail here. Brilliant. You know, it didn't need a sequel. I mean, it didn't. You know, it did. Now, it did have a sequel, Psycho 2. Which actually is a really good movie. It's actually a really good movie. I still think Psycho is superior, but I kind of feel like about Psycho 2, like I feel about Halloween 2 from 1981, right? Halloween is the benchmark. It is far superior to Halloween 2 for a variety of reasons. But Halloween 2, you're like, it's, I mean, it's not bad. Like, I mean, it's my favorite sequel. And part of that, as you know, is because it picks up immediately where the first one left off. So it feels like one movie, but two separate parts, blah, blah, blah. Is it a little more gratuitous? Yes. Did they step up the violence and blood? Sure. But Dean Cundey was the DP, Carpenter was producing, so the visual style and aesthetic was still sort of there. Psycho 2, Dean Cundey was the DP on that as well. And so, there's a certain understanding of that Dean Cundey has with light and shadow and being able to set mood. And so the mood in Psycho 2 is great. The story, I believe it. I believe that he got out and he goes back home and shit begins to happen again. Of course, in a very different... And then they really play the empathetic card. In Psycho 2, they really sort of lean towards it, really making you as an audience think this guy has nothing to do with anything. And in some respects, he doesn't, because then, the sister comes back and the whole fucking thing. That's a whole other video right there. It's a whole other video. It's not quite the 60th anniversary yet for Psycho 2. But yeah, I mean, what a great film. And if you haven't seen Psycho, I highly doubt you don't know what it's about. But if you haven't seen Psycho, check it. And you look, if you don't like old horror movies, or you don't like old movies, black and white movies, and I don't like the colors, okay, then don't bother, because you're just not. But if you really appreciate classic black and white films and you're a Hitchcock fan, you gotta watch Psycho. You do. I mean, it's like being a Spielberg fan and not watching, an E.T., or Jaws, or something like that, or being a Harrison Ford fan and never seeing any of the Indiana Jones movies. It's just, how can you call yourself a fan if you have it? Just doesn't make any sense. But certainly, yeah, happy birthday to Psycho, 60 years old this year. And yeah, hard to believe, 60 years old. All right, let's move to the chat room and see what you guys are saying about Psycho and how you guys feel about what's going on. Now, there was a super chat that came in. Let me get that super chat. Earlier was Big G, says Shower Death would have been great if it was in color. I disagree. I appreciate the super chat, but I disagree. It didn't need to be in color, and it couldn't have been in color. But now I think there might be like I said, there may be a colorized version of Psycho sort of lingering around, but maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of another movie, but certainly black and white is the way to go. I mean, it just is. That was the original intent. They had to do it that way, like I said, to get past the censors, because it would have been too graphic. And I don't think you need it. I think everything else is so strong around it that I just don't think you need it. But maybe you feel the same way. You might feel the same way. Okay, let's see. I don't think I missed any other super chats. There was just that one that came in. Yes. Okay. All right, let me see here. Jason Meyer says old school movies are one of the best. They can be, man. There's a lot of great old films I love. The Bridge on the River Kwai, Rope, Vertigo and Rear Window and, Touch of Evil and All About Baby Jane, All About Eve, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. I mean, there's so many great old classic films that if you haven't checked out even any of the ones that I mentioned, you're doing yourself a disservice. You really are. Because these films way back in the day, because they couldn't rely on the old saying that seems to become a popular phrase now here in the world of filmmaking, which is we'll fix it in post. You couldn't necessarily rely on that 50, 60 years ago. And, the special effects were not what they were. And there was a very, and again, not that there isn't today, it's all relative and things evolve and change and technology changes. And I understand that, but there was a very, and it doesn't mean there weren't bad shit movies back in the 40s or the 50s or the 60s. Of course there were, but there was such a focus on character and story and narrative that a lot of these films are just great stories, and the characters are so well developed, and you feel like because they come from this, like, that's why back in the 30s and the 40s, late 20s, when the talkies started to, make their way into the pop culture, and certainly by the 30s, and the 40s. That's why a lot of the acting you see in those old films are very big and very theater-like, because that's where acting came from. Right? That's where it came from. So a lot of the stars were very, well, I don't think that's going to be like that. Why don't you tell me what's going to be? I don't think, do you know what's over there? Well, quite frankly, I don't think, I mean, it's because they're theater actors. You know what I mean? In some regards. And so acting was big and, you know, there at you and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then of course, as cinema sort of, you know, developed and expanded, nuances began to creep in, and you know, you began to realize that you see on stage, because the audience is relatively far away, you need to be big with your performances in order for those, ironically, nuances to translate. When it comes to film, it doesn't have to be like that, because they're capturing it like this, right? In a small little box. You're this close to the camera, like I am right now. So I can be more nuanced and subtle in those little looks and kind of, and, you know, and that sort of, now we see that, right? But that's why, you know, you watch old films and, you know, the ladies are always often, well, my dear, I don't think you know, it's just, it's theater, and the theater came first, but there's such great stories. And yeah, you just watch them, man. Watch them old films. Tabitha Short says, hey, Tabitha, how are you? For me, of any movie, I need to see the original before watching any remakes. You know, I think that's a good way to be. Although, you know, you also want to give the remake a chance as well. But I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, that's one way of doing it for sure. 100%. Vegas Courier says, my dad built the Bates house for Universal Studios. I think the Orlando one, along with the Jaws ride and a few others. Well, that's so cool. Yeah, the Orlando one is no longer, Jaws is not there anymore, and the Orlando one is no longer there. Now, the Universal Studios Hollywood one, if you've ever been to the Hollywood theme park and done the backlot tour, that Bates Motel and that house, that's the original. That's the house from the 1960 movie, because it's the exterior. Now, the interiors of the Psycho House were shot on a soundstage, but the exterior of the Psycho House, the real Psycho House from the 1960 movie, is the one at Universal Studios in Hollywood. The one in Florida was a replica, and that was torn down years ago, apparently. But I remember I went to Universal in Florida. I was there in 89, 90, 91, 92, and I think I was there again in 96 as a teenager for, you know, various vacations. And I remember those rides. I love those rides. I miss those rides. Those what would be perceived almost as practical rides. There's like the Kongfrontation. Fuck, you guys remember King Kong? Kongfrontation at Universal? The big gigantic Kong that grabs the tram and shake. I love that shit, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Peter Jackson 3D King Kong they currently have now is cool. I mean, it's cool, right? But there's a certain charm about that old shit, man. But Vegas Courier, very cool. That's very cool. Tell your dad he had a very cool job. Nick P was here. He was here. He's not here now, but he was. Nick P says, hello, Dave. I don't live too far from the house featured in Edward Hopper's painting, The House by the Railroad. That's interesting. I've never, interesting. Okay. Which is believed to be some of the inspiration for the Psycho House. Fascinating. I did not know that Nick P was here. I am going to look that up. That's pretty cool, man. That's very cool. Hans Gruber says, Bride of Frankenstein is great as well. Oh, yeah. Going back to all the old, the Universal monster films are fantastic. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Kong from 1931. Was it 1931? I thought it was 1933. But I could be wrong on that. Oliver Mercer says, yeah, I remember all those rides at Orlando. It was great stuff, man. Kongfrontation, E.T., the Jaws ride, which was always breaking down. Actually, we were on the King Kong ride. I think it might have been in 96. In 1996, I went with my buddy Bruce, and I think it might have been with him that we went. We went with him, my mom, and my sister. We all went down. And I think this was this time. We were on the King Kong ride and it shut down. It broke down. And they had to lower the tram into the fog because when you were on the tram, you're only probably about 20 feet off the ground. But when you look over, because there's all sorts of fog, you can't see anything. It looks like you're in the clouds, which is really cool. So when the ride broke down, they had to lower us to the ground, and they're lowering us, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? Where's the ground? What the hell? And then we hit the ground, obviously. It's not a big deal. We get out, and we were walking. We had like a mini impromptu behind the scenes tour, and we were walking around and we saw King Kong and shit like that. And they gave us, of course, fast lane free passes or whatever to come back, skip the line when the ride is working. And, we got on like that, obviously, which they would do that for everybody that was there. But that was kind of cool. And I have it on tape because I had a high 8 camcorder at the time, and I have it on tape. So in one of my VHS boxes somewhere, there's a videotape of that experience, which was really cool. So I think that's awesome. Super chat comes in from Frank Riker, says, any movie you like where the fourth wall was broken? Well, I guess some spoofs, like Airplane and, some of, the Naked Gun films and, I think, unless you mean a horror film, but I would say, yeah, like any movie like that. I think if you're going to break the fourth wall in a serious narrative, it takes me out of it, right? I don't want to be reminded that I'm watching a movie when the movie's supposed to be serious. So when we get, but if it's Naked Gun, or even if it's like something like Police Academy or Scary Movie or, Airplane, or Spaceballs, if it's a spoof movie, that's fun. I would probably say, yeah, any of the Naked Gun, Spaceballs I love. What the hell am I looking at? When does this happen in the movie? Now. Everything that happens now is happening now. What happened to then? We passed then. When? Just now. We're at now. Go back to then. When? Now. I can't. Why? We missed it. When? Just now. When will then be now? Soon. I know it pretty much off by heart because I love that scene. Super chat comes in from the Badass Ninja, and he says, can we get another impression of theater actress back in the day again? That was hilarious. What do you mean? What are you doing? Well, my dear, I don't think that's right. I think you're wrong. How dare you? You know how it was. There you go, Chris. Chris Baber sends in a super chat and says, classic black and white horror is great. Even enjoyed the Dark Shadows series. Black and white is still fun to watch, unless it's porn. Oh, Chris, buddy, I love your sense of humor. You're very witty, man. I love that. That's funny. I agree with everything you've said. That's funny. That's funny. All right, here. Let me see here. Jason Wiley says, movie shot on celluloid make you appreciate how creative and resourceful filmmakers were in using limited film stocks, not like today where filmmakers are doing countless setups using digital, etc. Well, I think I agree with what you're saying in principle at its foundation, but it's not that I think obviously there's more movies being made today than there ever has before in history. There's more good movies being made today than there ever has before in history, and there's more bad movies being made today than ever before in history. And that's just the probability you have. That's just the process of the numbers, right? The more of something you have, the more bad of it you'll have, and probably the more good of it you'll have. I just think the process has changed, and things are still extremely difficult. The same principles to filmmaking apply, at least they should apply, but obviously technology has changed. There's more jobs, there's more. It's really at the end of the day, it's probably I was going to say billion, but it's probably a multi-trillion-dollar industry at the end of the day when you think about it. When you combine all the money that's floating around between all the studios and the streaming services and all the debt and all the paying and all the money, it's just unbelievable. But I agree. There's nothing like when you watch the craftsmanship and the artistry of just how the shots were crafted and how they used lighting, to really convey the mood of a story or to help convey the mood of a story. You're bang on. It's unbelievable. And that's why when you see it done today, you have a better appreciation for it because it's like, wow, that's awesome, totally. Yeah, 100%. Let me see here. Duke Fleed says Oliver Hardy rules. Oliver Hardy? Franklin Stein says, Dave, have you seen M from 1931? It's a German film, and you can see it on YouTube for free. If not, I highly recommend it. I have not seen it. Oh, my camera's flickering again. I wonder why it's doing that. Let me, I don't know why it does that. Let me, get my camera back into flickering. Yeah. 1 second. I'm going to just, 1 second here and see if we get that back. Maybe that'll make a difference. Ba 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 ba. No sound! No sound! There's no sound! That's okay. There's Dave, there's no sound! Hey, there's 30 of us writing it! Somebody else write it! I love you guys. I'm just busting your balls. So it's, he's back! He's back! He's back! Somebody else type he's back! I'm just busting your balls, guys. I'm just busting your balls. But yeah, what was I saying? I was saying, talking about the Loomis, the Loomis character. That's right. Franklin Stein said something about the Loomis character and whether or not Marion in Psycho was influenced, Marion Chambers in Halloween. And maybe, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure whether that's the case, but it might be. I mean, we definitely know that the Loomis character in Psycho influenced, obviously, Sam Loomis in Halloween. I mean, that's obvious. We definitely know that. So yeah. Aaron Click says, Dave, will you please do some Norman Bates dialogue in your Trump voice? Let me see here. We all go a little mad sometimes, okay? We just go a little mad. It's okay. It's the biggest mad, the greatest mad, the best, tremendous mad. It's what I do. There you go. Danita Brown, he's back! I'm back, Danita! Nick P was here, says, laughed out loud before hearing it. Let me see here. Yes, Marion definitely had a different. Marion definitely had a different last name in Psycho, but the first name may have been inspiration. You never know. Jason Meyer says, Dave, what's your favorite Hammer horror movie? Oh my God. I don't know. That's a tough one because there's several with Christopher Lee that I like. But because Christopher Lee was brilliant. Have you guys seen? Do you guys remember the old kids movie Mio and the Land of Faraway? I think Mio in the Land of Faraway. Hang on a sec. I'm going to see if I can fix this. 1 second, guys. I'm going to drop out. I'm going to come right back. Just hold your fort. I want to see if I can fix this thing here. 1 second. Okay. Okay, we'll see if that helps the flickering with the camera, but maybe not. I don't know. Oh, no, it didn't. Oh, well, I don't know what's going on there. Fucking camera. Let's see. Striker Ed. Mio in the Land of Faraway. It's I believe it's a Swedish film. It stars a very young Christian Bale who is in it. I think it's 1987. And yeah, I don't know. It was one of my favorite kid movies. And I believe the Swedish release title was Mio Min Mio. The American release was Mio and the Land of Faraway. And Christopher Lee plays the villain. Now, that's not a Hammer film, but thinking about Christopher Lee and how awesome he is, the very first movie I actually ever saw him in was Mio and the Land of Faraway from 1987. That was my first introduction to Christian Bale. I believe it was a year after Bale did Empire of the Sun, which is a brilliant film, by the way. Love that movie. Love that movie. That's a Spielberg film, for those of you that didn't know that. So I don't know. It's a good question, but yeah, watch, if you guys have not seen Mio, it's dated, but look that up. Mio and the Land of Faraway. Christian Bale's not the main boy. He's not Mio. He's Yum Yum, I think his name is. It's a cool movie. Go just check it out. Like it came out, the same year, like, The Princess Bride. It's got that. It's a fantasy sort of thing. Check it out. It's really cool. Smith's. But what my favorite Hammer film? I don't know. That's a good. I got to think about that, because there's a few that I'm thinking of, but. Yeah, ask me again. Ask me again so I can think on this. Lauren Downing says, you'd give Alec Baldwin a run for his money with that Trump. I appreciate that, Lauren. Yeah, it's a cartoony character, right? Obviously, there's no way that I could pass for Donald Trump, but certainly it's tremendous. It's amazing. It's great. I love it. Okay. Certainly I might be able to do it in some little cartoon skit or something. Did I miss any other super chats? I don't think I did when we were talking about, oh yeah, there is a super chat here. Ian Allen James says, just to support the channel. Thank you, Ian. You rock, buddy. Really appreciate it. Love that. Love when people just do that. Just saying, I just want to support the channel, man. Love what you're doing. That's awesome. Thanks, buddy. Really appreciate it. I don't think I missed any others. I'm going to move over to that live dashboard though. Make sure I didn't. I did not. Okay, good. Okay, let me see. I love scroll. No sound! There's no sound! We're back. Vanderhoff 66FU says, I'm a Dave. Have you seen the recent Psycho TV series? It's good. I have not. I'm not a big television guy, and that includes streaming. Now, I've watched Stranger Things. My girlfriend and I watched Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. That was funny. And I watched, and I really, I liked it. I liked the first season. They are releasing a second season soon of the Netflix series, The Society. Have you guys watched The Society? It's a more mature version, even though it deals with 20-somethings. It's probably a less hokier version of Riverdale. And I've never watched Riverdale, but I know what it's about. I know it's take on Archie in the comics, and there's, a mystery. And but The Society, I was sick. Last summer I was sick. I was under the weather. I hardly ever get sick, but I was under the weather, and I was looking for something to watch. But I really like mysteries. I really like, trying to figure things out. What's going on? Fuck shit. I love that shit. So I think I Googled, show. Oh, and I had just finished watching Dark. Have you guys seen Dark? It's Germany's first Netflix, or I think it's a Netflix show it's a German show, subtitled. You can watch it subtitled, or you can watch it with the English dub. I watched it with the English dub, just because with a show like that's really cerebral, like Dark, I want to pay attention to the characters. I don't want to be reading the whole time. I would get used to it, but I chose the dubbed version. Love that fucking show. Love it. It is really intense, really deep, really cerebral. You gotta fucking pay attention. But I love that show. And they're coming back for a third and final season, I think. And then I watched the first season about a year or two ago of the OA. I liked that. I liked the OA because same kind of thing. What's going on, the mystery, the sci-fi, the bigger picture life thing. What is this all about? I love that shit. I started watching the second season of the OA and I lost interest. I felt like, I forget her name now, the main actress. The star. it started to seem a little self-indulgent. It started to, she's very talented. Loved the first season, really didn't need anything more. But it felt like it felt like it was just almost what? Anyways, I lost interest after the first few episodes of the second season, didn't watch the rest, and the OA was canceled anyway. Stranger Things, obviously, I binge watched that when it first comes out. So I'm looking for shows that are similar, like mystery kind of. So I think I Googled something, shows like that. And I read that there's a show called The Society that just was released. And this is what it's about. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. But is this going to be like a teen, I'm 40 years old, for Christ's sakes. So it's kind of like, is this going to be? So I watched the first episode. I was like, this is actually really good. The performances are really good. They're genuine. They're mature. And I binge watched over the next 2 days, all 8 or 10 episodes of the first season. And it's really good. And the symbolism and layers in that in that series are really good. So I quite enjoyed The Society. I quite enjoyed the story they're taking it from. In terms of the whole Pied Piper and leading the kids astray and the whole that, religious thing. But it's really well done. It's not, there's a religious, I guess, and I'm not a religious person. I just don't care. There's a subtext that's there, but it's not the story. Do you know what I mean? It's not, it's just sort of kind of inconspicuously, there's a bigger picture sort of theme there, but it's really well done. I really enjoyed this. The performances are fan-fucking-tastic. Really good performances. So if you haven't checked out The Society, they're coming out with a second season. Just look it up. Watch the first couple episodes, because it usually takes about 3 or 4 episodes to really figure out whether if this is going to work. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to the second season. There's some teen drama and some teen angst in there. Okay. But if you can look past that and look at the bigger picture mystery, it's really creepy, really, really well done. I love that kind of thing. So, but that's it. As regards to TV, I'm not a big TV guy. There are I haven't seen a lot of the shows that you talk about, including the Psycho show. I haven't seen, and it's not, and that's not to say that I don't watch it because I don't think it's going to be good. It's just I don't have an inherent interest right up front to watch it, and time is a factor as well too. But super chat comes in from Chris Baber, my man, says eyes without a face. Oh. That's good. Yeah, that was one of the inspirations for the look of Michael Myers. Eyes Without a Face, 1960, was also a great black and white flick to the channel. Thanks, buddy. Really appreciate it. Yes, I mean that I think that was it, right? That was one of the inspirations for the pale, sort of emotionless look for Michael Myers. So really, really cool. Awesome shit, man. Did I miss any super chats? No, just going back and seeing no sound. He's back, baby. He's back. Dale Bergman says Eyes Without a Face is a horror masterwork. John Carpenter took the, oh, well, there you go. Yeah, there it is. Dale Bergman just confirming my report. Jerp Pin says, Dave, do you think the one-track shot in H-18 was too rushed? I think it wasn't suspenseful or scary at all. No, I don't think it was necessary. Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't think the speed of it was necessary. I think it was just the execution in terms of I think there. I don't think it was right to play the Halloween theme under that. Get rid of the Halloween theme. And change your lighting. Michael walks under the garage and he's lit up like a Christmas tree. And then the one shot breaks because obviously there is a cut there. We have to remember there actually is a cut. The one shot doesn't begin. I mean, it begins with Michael walking underneath the garage where he's lit up. But there's a cut because when he gets the hammer, it cuts. And now the shot is in the house. And we see him come into the house and kill the girl in curlers, Halloween 2 nod. and then go buy the baby, exit out the door, go over and kill Marion. Marion, if you're watching, how you doing? That's really the one shot really begins in the house. I get what you're saying, and it's more, there's actually truth to what you're saying. There's very little suspense in the movie. I think once you start to see, I think the Halloween theme was the wrong thing to play. I think it would have been scarier had it been a POV as opposed to seeing Michael in the frame. That doesn't mean you don't transition at some point to seeing Michael or seeing a variation of him, his arm or something. But certainly that scene, yes, I don't find that scene suspenseful at all. I don't find it suspenseful at all. I don't think there's anything suspenseful about it at all. And I think the speed might have been a factor, but I think it just feels hollow. And I think it feels hollow because there's no nuance to it. It's just very matter of fact. And I think they did that to show that Michael is, he's a force of nature, right? He's a killing machine. But I think maybe, although I understand the principle of what they were trying to show, and I get it, maybe it would have been better to show him stalking the lady rather than just going in and out and in and out and in and out. There's not a lot of, it feels very cold and flat. Maybe if he had wound up in the house and then utilize, that a bit more, and he's in the corner and it's a POV and he's coming around, just utilize more of that. Take your time a bit. But in doing that, what that then translates onto the screen is that there's more, by doing it that way, you do add suspense, but at the same time, you sort of remove not remove completely. You don't. But for the level of eating, killing, force of nature machine that Danny McBride and David Gordon Green were going for, you do sort of flatten that out a bit, because he's not just going in and out, in and out, in and out, kill, in and out, kill, in and out, kill. They wanted to show you that he doesn't give a fuck. He's just boom, boom, boom. And that's good. But if there's one thing that movie needed more of, it was more nuanced suspense. And I think that was a scene that probably could have used that. It's a great question, actually. And thank you for it. Speed may have been a factor, but I think if we were to talk about the speed, I think we have to talk about some of the other things that I've mentioned here. And it would just need to be reworked. I don't think him walking slower would have helped. I don't think, because it's still the same thing happening. So I think there's other variables at play that would have had to have been adjusted to create a little more objective suspense, where more people find this is kind of creepy, this is weird, rather than just seeing him go through this little, excursion that he's on. And seeing him the way we do too is I don't think it was a wise choice. I think he should have either been shrouded in more darkness or just been a POV. But yeah, great question though. Great question. Let me see here. Smagin Tarantino? Smagin Tarantino. Am I saying that right? Not Tarantino. Tarantino, yeah. Yo, Dave, what's up? Just dropping by to leave a like and say I'm a big fan. Well, thank you so much. If you are a fan of me, I am a fan of you, you sumbitch. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Swifty the Gamer says the one shot of the shape looking at Lonnie in the flashback really looks like it's from the original film. That has me excited. Very cool. Yeah, it looks, well, they've done their due diligence. They've done a really good job. The kid definitely looks like Lonnie. And when you watch the original and you see what he was wearing, it looks good. Now, again, execution. It doesn't mean that a script isn't a script has got to be good, right? How the script is written, the nuances, the subtleties, the action, the dialogue, how it's presented. Yeah, that's got to be good. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how cool the concept art is. It doesn't matter how cool this is. It doesn't matter how cool the storyboards are. It doesn't matter how cool that scene is on paper. It's all in execution. And that takes a director who understands those nuances and has those, and I'm not suggesting that David Gordon Green doesn't. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that then it takes a director to execute that vision and those directings, having the understanding of where to place the camera, what angle to use, what lens to use. I mean, obviously they are working hand in hand with the director of photography, the DP, and usually what happens is that the director will be like, well, this is my vision, this is what I want, and that will tell. There we go. There's my head. That will tell the DP what lighting, what lens would probably be appropriate. And then they convey that to the director and they talk about that kind of stuff. I mean, the DP, outside of maybe your first AD and your actors, of course, and, okay, yeah, I mean, the DP is every director wants to have a great relationship with your DP. It's so important. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of I mean, yeah, in the behind the scenes little pictures we saw, looks cool, but who knows? All in the execution, man. I just don't want them to insert a flashback with Lonnie Elam and Michael that when you look at the original Halloween, it makes no fucking sense how this would have happened. That's my only concern. If this is a flashback where Michael runs into Lonnie after he's been shot 6 times, okay, all right. But if it's before he's been shot, that makes me more nervous. It makes me more nervous. But we'll see. Smiths Grove says, Dave, I missed the show you had with Cecil, wondering if they were able to meet their financial goal for the upcoming. Yes, they did. They absolutely did. They met their goal. I am flying to Phoenix on May 25th. I will be in Phoenix, Arizona from May 25th to 30th. Sorry for anybody who's in Phoenix. I won't have time for a meetup or anything like that because obviously I'll be shooting. I'll be playing Freddy Krueger. So we'll be shooting the 25th. I don't think, I think, am I shooting the 25th? I'm not sure. They might be shooting the 25th. Anyways, I'll be shooting the 26th, the 27th, the 28th, the 29th, playing Freddy Krueger in Dylan's New Nightmare. And then I fly back to Toronto on the 30th of May. And we'll have a wrap party, I think that on Friday night or something. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing Miko again and working with him and hashing out cool, moments together that is reflective of what Cecil wants, and I'm looking forward to seeing Vince again and working with him and Renee. And I've yet to meet Renee. I've met Cecil and Vince and Miko and Nora, but I've yet to meet Renee in person. So I'm looking to meeting him, and I'm looking to meeting Dave, who's one of the producers, and anybody and everybody that's going to be there. I am just looking forward to being in an environment of creative, talented people. And that's, and that excites me because that kind of thing is contagious, and that kind of energy, you feed off of that, and when you're in that kind of an environment, it's just, it's palpable, the energy is palpable. So, yeah, they did reach their goal, and they are fortunately, well, they didn't reach their goal, but they reached enough of their goal that they are able to do the whole short film, because it was looking a bit iffy there for a while, because I think when I left Los Angeles, when I left Hollywood in November to come back to Toronto, I think they were sitting at about 16,000, I think, 16,000 US that they had raised. Now, in Canadian funds, they reached their goal. But our dollar is only worth about 76 cents to your dollar. So obviously, that's, it goes further up here. But they reached enough of their goal. I think they got about 32,000, something like that, which was enough of their goal to be able to do the whole movie. which is great. When I say whole movie, I'm talking about the short film, because, people were asking, are you going to be able to do it with just 16,000? And Cecil was honest and said, listen, no, it's essentially a $40,000 picture, right? So we need as much money as we can to be able to deliver the production value and quality that we want. If we can't, then maybe we'll just shoot a scene or something and then just use that one little scene as a concept to then help maybe raise the rest of the money. That's, you could always do, or raise the money again, I guess, or, however much they need. So when we launch It's Me, Billy's Indiegogo campaign, and we have our set, it's imperative that to be able to deliver the production value and the level of quality that we want for It's Me, Billy is the same thing. If, Bruce and I only raise $5,000, then you ain't getting an It's Me, Billy movie. It can't happen. It can't, we can't make I don't know what the budget is going to be yet on the Indiegogo campaign for It's Me, Billy. But just spitballing and ballparking it, it's probably going to be at least 40,000. But if we only raise 5,000, well, but we've written a $40,000 picture. So we just can't do it, so we'll either refund it, or what we do is we take that and make maybe a cool little scene, maybe something we could do on a $5,000 budget that can maybe help sell it more and then try to raise, you know what I mean? But hopefully we don't have to do that. And we can raise, the budget we need, and maybe even and then some, right? Because it's always good to have a little bit extra, as well. So, because that only helps the production. So, but yes, to answer your question, they did raise enough to be able to see this through. So I'm excited about it, very much so. All right, we'll go for another 10 minutes here, another 10 minutes. Edward Moody sends in a super chat. Thank you very much, Edward. He says, I really hope Halloween Kills is not inserting a flashback just for the sake of putting a flashback to give fans nostalgia. Well, I agree in principle, but let's look at this a little logically here. Tommy Doyle is back. Lindsay Wallace is back. Marion Chambers is back. Sheriff Brackett is back. Laurie Strode didn't die. She's back. There's 5 pieces of nostalgia right there. Lonnie Lamb is back. Sorry, that's 6. Now, it's not the same actor, nor is Anthony Michael Hall the same actor. He's not Brian Andrews, but the characters are back. Is it necessary? No. But I mean, come on. This whole, it's all about the fact that Halloween 2018 exists is because of nostalgia. It was built on nostalgia. But I get what you're saying. It might be one too many nostalgic things or whatever. I agree. My concern really at the end of the day, like I said, is just it doesn't fuck anything up continuity wise from the original Halloween. It's a classic. You can't touch that shit, man. You can't touch it. It's one of David Gordon Green wanted to reshoot the ending. He wanted to change the ending to the original Halloween. Do you remember this? Do you guys remember this? And John Carpenter was like, no, why would you want to do that? He was going to cast a Loomis, change the ending subtly to help. I don't even know if it was subtle, but clearly we know that Michael's caught, right? So he wanted to change the ending to fit. And listen, I get it. I understand it. If you're moving, I totally get it. But then if you change the ending, if there's something you do that changes the continuity of that ending, and we don't know what that was going to be specifically. We don't know if he was going to change Michael being shot. Maybe he's not shot 6 times. Maybe he's shot 3 times. We don't know. He falls off the balcony. Is he apprehended right there on the front lawn? That would change the ending, right? I mean, we don't know the details specifically per se, just that he wanted to kind of shoot some things to help. That's why in Halloween 2018, Laurie's bedroom, and this is a fact, look at Laurie's bedroom in her house there, her compound, right? When she goes over the balcony, right? Look at the bedroom. everything is situated like the master bedroom of the Doyle house. They built that because they were actually going to reshoot the ending. They were. And that's why the Laurie's bedroom in her house at the end of the 2018 film is situated exactly like the Doyle house, where the doors are, the doors open like this, where the bed is, where the closet is. That's why. Because they were going, and then they didn't do it. They decided against it, but wanted to use the set they had built anyway. So they did that. So they used it, but it wasn't originally going to be used for Laurie's bedroom. It was going to be the Doyle's, the beginning of the movie. So that's my concern, is that's an example of where I thought, well, hang on a sec. You can't, because then depending on what you do, if you're not fucking careful, every Halloween film that now exists in the pop culture is obsolete. Your Blu-ray, your 4K, your VHS, your DVD, it's obsolete because the ending has now been changed. Now, again, I don't think they were going to drastically change the ending. Like instead of Michael being shot out the balcony, he's stuffed with a, piece of celery in his mouth and he falls down the stairs. I mean, it's not that kind of change, but they were going to rework some things to help fit their narrative. And John Carpenter was like, I don't think you should do that. And I was like, yeah, you should not do that. What the fuck are you doing? Like, come on, right? So I'm okay with the flashback as long as it doesn't impede and start to make you question, well, when did this actually happen? Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's after he's been shot and he's walking around and he's got, bullet holes or something, and it's after, okay, that's better because that is more justified then, because we don't see what happens after he's gone, right? Okay, that makes more sense. But if it's a flashback somewhere in the middle of the night when he's supposed to be at the Wallace house, it's a little tricky to me. But yeah, nonetheless. But I get what you're saying, man. Super chat comes in from Michael Martinez. Just send it in $20, man. I really appreciate that. It goes right back into the channel. Thanks, buddy. Frank Riker sends in a super chat and says, Dave, the tow truck driver is back from the field. Frank, my man. Frank the Tank. Always with I love Frank, man. That's funny. Can you imagine? Oh, my goodness. Crazy. Let's see. Amstel54 says, give Loomis an Uzi and change it to, I shot him 26 times. I'm telling you, I shot him 48 times. I was standing there. I shot him 48 times. Can you imagine? Holy shit. Or no, it's slow motion. Laurie's going, no! Blood's skin flying everywhere. Yes, Nick P. 20-minute scene. Yes, 20-minute scene. Fucking Laurie, get out, run. No, I'm stuck. And the fucking bullets are flying everywhere. He's hitting the closet, and the wood from the closet's going like this, and Laurie's all like, oh my fucking God. A bullet grazes her arm. He's just fucking gone mad. And Michael just continues to stand there taking it. His flesh is flying off of him, his mask getting it, and then it speeds up. Fucking amazing. Oh my goodness. Hey, isn't that Devon Graham says, where's Bob or Annie? Where's Bob or Ann? Oh, Bob or Ann. Bob or Ann. Now I get what you're talking about, buddy. Yeah, that thing. Where's Bob or Ann? Barbara Ann? I remember that. That was a few years ago now that I did that. That's funny. That's funny stuff. Oh man, you guys are great. You guys make me smile. You guys are awesome. Let me see here. Mark Johnson says not one blood pack worked. Cut reshoot. And he's standing there like Al Pacino in, Scarface. He's just like, it's just fucking like there's so many bullets coming out of the gun. It's not possible. How many rounds did he have on him? He's got fucking like the shit, like the round. He's like, I'm telling you, that is funny shit. That is funny stuff. I think that's funny. Lori, get the fuck out of here! Michael just taking it, and then it ends, and all you hear is there's smoke all around, and it's smoke, and he's walking through the smoke, and Loomis is sweating, and his bullet fucking shell cases are just riddled everywhere. It's like taking the end of Halloween 4 when Meeker was shooting Myers and taking that to the next level. Like imagine that just lasting for like 20 minutes. And woo! Oh man, I love it. A couple super chats came in. Ian Allen James says, David Gordon Green wanted Michael to kill Loomis and Laurie to shoot Michael off the balcony, according to that interview. Are you serious? I did not know that. Are you serious? That is the most incompetent, dumb fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. You have a first part out there that doesn't do that. You render every copy of Halloween that's ever existed complete. That makes no sense. What the hell? What kind of fucking pot and crack were David Gordon? And I'm not knocking them as people. I'm just saying, guys, really? If that now, again, I'm not saying you're lying, Ian. I'm not. I haven't read that myself, so I'm taking your word for it. I'd have to read the article and the interview myself. But if you're bang on, and they weren't joking, that's ridiculous. Kevin Fishgall says, it always bothered me in H4 that they couldn't get the mask right, but the kids playing the prank on Meeker wore better masks than mine. Yeah, have you noticed that? That always bothered me in Halloween 4 as well. When those teenagers, I guess, there's like 4 of them, they're all out there with Myers masks on, and Loomis is there as well, and Meeker's like, oh my God, Loomis, look, which one is he? I don't know. And they're looking all around. There's a couple of them. There's one especially standing by the house, and he's kind of got there's fog around him. He looks like fucking Nick Castle but very Nick Castle-ish. And every time I watch that movie, I'm like, damn, man. Like, why did you fucking just the way you just fucking. I agree 100%. Frank Riker sends in a super chat and says, Loomis suicide vest. Yes, he walks up and he goes, it's time, Michael. The entire Doyle house explodes. That'd be awesome. Nick P was here, sends in a super chat. Great stuff. Love this channel. Well, we love you, Nick. We love you. And I like that your avatar there is a play on the Warner Brothers logo. That's fun. At least it looks like it is. Let me see. All right. Let me see here. I just don't want to make sure I didn't miss any other super chats. Let me go over to my other window. Make sure I didn't. I don't believe I did. No. I'm going over to the other window because over the last little bit, it's been a bit tricky with super chats for some strange reason. They show up here, which is where they always show up, but sometimes they've gone MIA in the chat room window, and I don't know why. All right, okay, that is gonna do it for me, ladies and germs, here on episode Episode 11. I was going to say of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Episode 11 of Mcrae Live. Happy birthday to Psycho, who turns 60 this year. I want to thank you all who tuned in for this episode. Even if you're watching after the fact, you guys rock. And of course, thank you to everybody who sent in super chats. Really appreciate you guys supporting the channel in that way. And everybody else who watched and asked questions. As usual, if I did not answer your question, it's never personal. As you guys know, there's just a lot of people in the chat room, and I'm always thorough with my answers. Maybe sometimes a little verbose. But anyway, that's okay. It's who I am. Take it or leave it. I don't care. Get out of here, Lori! Run! I can't! You're fucking shooting too much! Stop your fucking shooting! That's some funny shit. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Same time, same bat time, same bat channel, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Mcrae Live for episode 12. All right, guys, have a great rest of your Thursday. I'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.